The Tesla hit the ice at 63 miles per hour and the father swam away. Kaya Whitehorse heard the 3-year-old screaming from inside the sinking car and didn't think. She just moved. The water was 34. Her body started dying in 90 seconds. She punched through the window with bare hands, pulled the girl out, lifted her above the surface, and that's when she understood the full horror. The ice walls were vertical, 6 feet high, and she couldn't climb out. She had nothing but her arms and a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Kaya's story travels. Now, let's begin. The morning Marcus Thornton decided to drive drunk with his daughter in the back seat. Kaya White was parked in a Walmart parking lot, wondering if she had enough gas money to make it through the week. Her van, a 1987 Dodge Ram with a cracked windshield and an engine that sounded like it was coughing up its last breath, had been home for 7 months. Ever since the Northern Cheyenne Tribal Council decided she was too dangerous to keep around, too honest, too willing to say what everyone else whispered behind closed doors. She was 19 years old, and she'd learned that truthfulling could cost you everything. You should go back. Her phone screen read. Text from her cousin Marie, the only family member still speaking to her. Uncle Joseph says the council is reconsidering. Core deleted it without responding. She'd heard that lie before. She pulled on her work thermals, the thick kind pipeline workers wore in Montana winters, and checked her reflection in the rear-view mirror. Dark eyes that had seen too much, hair pulled back in a braid her grandmother had taught her to weave before the medical neglect killed her. Hands that still remembered how to start fires without matches, track elk through snowfall, survive in wilderness that would kill most people in 48 hours. Her grandmother had called her fierce heart. The tribal council had called her something else entirely. Carl started the van. She had a shift at the Tahoe construction site in 40 minutes. Pipeline work paid $11 an hour under the table. No questions asked about why a Northern Cheyenne girl was living in Nevada without a permanent address. She didn't make it to work. The Tesla Model X appeared on Highway 50 at exactly 6:47 a.m. weaving between lanes, with the particular recklessness of someone who believed consequences were for other people. Marcus Thornton had believed that his entire life. At 42, he'd built a tech empire on stolen ideas and venture capital. At 42, he'd survived 3 Deweys by hiring lawyers who knew which judges owed favors. At 42, he'd lost custody of his daughter in a divorce so vicious it had made Page 6, and he'd spent last night celebrating his appeal victory with enough vodka to kill a normal man's liver. Luna, 3 years old, strapped into her rear-facing car seat, clutching a stuffed elephant, had been crying for 20 minutes. Daddy, I want Mommy. Mommy's not here, baby. Daddy won. That's what matters. I want Mommy. Marcus' hands tightened on the wheel. The road ahead curved sharply, black ice gleaming in early morning light. He should have slowed down, should have pulled over, should have done 1,000 things differently. He didn't. The Tesla hit the curve at 63 miles per hour. The traction control screamed warnings he ignored. The vehicle pitched sideways, rear end sliding, front end gripping, physics making calculations Marcus' drunk brain couldn't process. Then they were airborne, for exactly 2.3 seconds. The car's computer would later record this with mechanical precision. The Tesla flew. Luna stopped crying. Marcus stopped breathing. The world became glass and sky, and the terrible understanding that he'd finally gone too far. They hit the frozen surface of Lake Tahoe, nose first. The ice held for almost a full second. Then it shattered like every lie Marcus had ever told, and the car punched through into water, so cold it could stop a heart in 8 minutes. Marcus felt it immediately. The shock, the violence, the absolute wrong of it. Water flooding through door seals, rising past his ankles, his knees, his chest. He fumbled for the door release. Electronic locks, designed for convenience, now designed for death. The water shorted them out, but the driver's window that still worked. Marcus hit the button. The window descended. Water poured in faster. He gulped air, twisted, squeezed through the opening. Luna was screaming behind him. "Daddy, Daddy, help." Marcus's head broke the surface. The shore was 40 trillion away. His body was already going numb. His lungs were burning. His brain was calculating survival odds with the cold mathematics of self-preservation. He looked back once, saw his daughter's face through the rear window, pale with terror, small hands pressed against glass, made a choice that would define him forever. He swam for shore. Kaya heard the crash from 4 miles away. Metal shrieking, ice exploding, something big and terrible happening in the direction she happened to be driving. She didn't hesitate. Her van skidded to a stop on the shoulder. She was out before the engine finished shuttering, running toward the lake, boots slipping on frozen ground, breath coming in clouds. She saw the man first crawling onto shore, lake water streaming from expensive clothes, gasping and shaking. She started toward him, then heard the crying, high-pitched, terrified, coming from the lake. The Tesla was sinking fast, cab tilted at 45, rear end still visible, but going down, and in the back window, a child's face, 'cause grandmother had taught her many things before the council's negligence killed her. How to read weather in cloud formations, how to find water in deserts, how to make hard choices when no good options existed. She'd never taught Core how to ignore a child's screams. Car ran for the water. Behind her, the man Marcus, though she didn't know his name yet, shouted something. She didn't stop to listen. The lake hit her like a fist made of knives. Every nerve in her body fired at once. The cold wasn't temperature, it was violence. It was assault. It was every molecule of water trying to strip the heat from her skin, her blood, her core. She kept moving. The water was chest deep here, maybe 40, current pulling her sideways, bottom slick with algae. The Tesla was 20 feet out, sinking faster now, water pouring through the open driver's window. Core pushed forward. Each step was a negotiation with her body, which wanted desperately to turn around, to seek warmth, to survive. She reached the cars. The rear window went under. Through the glass, she could see the little girl clearly now, maybe 3 years old, still strapped in her car seat, still crying. Small hands reaching toward Core with absolute trust. The door wouldn't open. Water pressure, physics, death wearing a mechanical face. Car made a fist and punched the window. The pain was distant, theoretical. Glass didn't break. She hit it again. Knuckles splitting. Blood swirling into dark water. Again, her grandmother's voice memory speaking through cold, fierce heart. "When the moment comes, you'll know what to do." 4th strike. Using her elbow, the window cracked. 5th strike. It shattered. Water rushed in. So did Car. The car's seat buckle was a nightmare of frozen plastic and panic. Her fingers weren't working right anymore. Stiff, clumsy, belonging to someone else. But she kept trying, kept fumbling, kept whispering words she didn't know she'd remembered. "I've got you. I've got you, baby. I'm not going to let go." The buckle released. She pulled the girl, Luna, she would learn later, from the seat and pushed back through the broken window, lifting her above the water. The child was so small, so light. Her arms wrapped around Ka's neck with surprising strength. "It's okay," Kaya whispered. "You're okay now. I've got you." That's when she turned toward shore and understood. The lake wasn't wide, 40 feet from bank to bank. The water wasn't deep. It came to Ka's chest, Luna's head well above the surface, as long as she kept her arms raised. But the banks weren't banks. This stretch of Lake Tahoe ran through a flood control channel. The sides were concrete walls nearly vertical, rising 6 feet from the water's surface to ground level. Smooth, featureless, coated in ice, at least an inch thick. No ladders, no handholds, nothing to grip. Car tried anyway. She pushed toward the wall, Luna's weight making every step treacherous. Reached up with one hand. Her fingers scraped against ice, slipped, found nothing. She tried again, stretching onto her toes, reaching as high as possible. The ice was too smooth, the wall too vertical, and she couldn't release Luna to use both hands. The current caught her. Not strong, maybe 2 miles per hour under normal conditions, but Ka's body was already failing. Her legs going numb, her core temperature dropping every second. She tried to plant her feet. The slick rocks betrayed her. She fell. Water closed over her head for a full second before she found her footing. Before she pushed herself up, before she lifted Luna back above the surface, the little girl was coughing, choking, screaming again. Ka held her as high as her arms could reach and fought the panic trying to hijack her brain. She tried the wall again, and again, and again, each attempt weaker than the last, each failure costing energy she couldn't afford to lose. Her body wanted to stop. Her body wanted to let go of the weight in her arms and swim for help. Her body, in its primitive wisdom, understood that holding a 25 lb child above water while standing chest deep in 34 water was a death sentence. Ka told her body to shut up. She backed against the concrete wall, pressing her spine to the ice, and lifted Luna as high as her arms could reach. The little girl's head was above water. She was breathing. She was alive. Ka would keep her that way for as long as her body lasted. "It's okay," she whispered through chattering teeth. "It's okay, baby. I've got you. Help is coming." She didn't know if help was coming. Didn't know if anyone had seen the crash. Didn't know if the man who crawled out and run away had called 911, or if he was still running. But she said it anyway. "I'm not going to let go. You hear me? I promise. I'm not going to let go." Luna looked up at her with enormous eyes, pale face, blue-tinged lips, already shivering violently. "Cold." The little girl whispered, "I know, baby. I know it's cold." Ka started to sing. The song was her grandmother's, a Northern Cheyenne lullaby from before the council's corruption, before the medical neglect, before everything. She hadn't sung it since the funeral, hadn't let herself remember. But now, in this frozen hell, the words came back like they'd been waiting. "Sleep now, little star. Morning's coming from afar. Hold tight through the night. Dawn will bring the light." Her voice was broken, barely a whisper, but Luna's eyes opened wider. This tiny creature, this impossibly small person, stopped shivering long enough to listen. Her hand, ice cold and trembling, reached up and touched Ka's face. "Pretty," Luna said. Ka felt tears freeze on her cheeks. "More song," the little girl said. "More." The man who had abandoned his daughter stood on the shore for exactly 17 seconds after Kaya entered the water. Marcus Thornton watched a stranger risk her life for the child he'd left to drown, watched her punch through a window with bare hands, watched her pull Luna from the sinking car, watched her try and fail to climb out. He stood there dripping and shaking, phone in his pocket, the ability to call 911 right there in his hand. He made a second choice that would define him. He ran, not toward help, not toward redemption, away, toward his Aspen estate, toward lawyers who had saved him before, toward a life where consequences happened to other people. Behind him, a 19-year-old girl stood in water that was killing her, holding his daughter above the surface, singing a lullaby in a language he would never understand. 10 minutes in, the pain peaked, Ka's muscles cramped and spasmed, random bursts of agony shooting through her legs and core. Her skin felt stabbed by 1,000 needles, each driving deeper with every second. Her core temperature dropped to 93 F. Luna had stopped crying. That terrified Ka more than anything. She looked down at the little girl's pale face, blue-tinged lips, eyes starting to flutter closed. The cold was taking her, too. She was smaller, less body mass. If Ka was dying, Luna was dying faster. "Stay with me," Ka said, her own voice strange and distant. "Stay awake, baby. Talk to me, sleepy." Luna whispered, "I know, but you can't sleep yet. Tell me about your elephant. What's his name?" Luna's eyes opened slightly. "Mr. Trunk. Mr. Trunk, that's a good name. Does he like adventures?" "Yeah. This is an adventure, baby. Mr. Trunk would be proud of you. You're being so brave." "Are you brave?" The question hit Kaya like a second wave of cold. Was she brave or just stupid? Standing in killing water because she couldn't ignore a child's screams, because her grandmother had taught her that honor mattered more than survival, The tribal council had said she was reckless, dangerous, too willing to sacrifice herself for principles that didn't pay bills or win arguments. Maybe they were right. But here, in this moment, holding a stranger's child above freezing water, Kaya discovered something her grandmother had always known. Bravery wasn't the absence of fear. It was the refusal to let fear make your choices. Yeah, Ka whispered. I'm brave. And so are you. 20 minutes in, her core temperature dropped to 84. The pain was fading now, replaced by a dangerous warmth spreading through her body. Hypothermia's cruelest trick, convincing the dying that they were getting better. Ka's arms shook so badly she feared dropping Luna. Her legs threatened to buckle with every breath. She kept singing the same 4 lines over and over. A loop, a mantra, a rope to hold on to, when everything else was slipping away. Sleep now, little star. Mornings coming from afar. She couldn't remember why she'd been exiled. Couldn't remember her grandmother's face. Couldn't remember her own name. She just knew that she couldn't let go. Couldn't stop. Couldn't break the promise she'd made. I'm not going to let go. She whispered over and over. A prayer and a promise and a desperate plea to a body that was shutting down. I'm not going to let go. 30 minutes in. 77F. Her vision started to blur. Thoughts became thick and slow. She couldn't remember exactly why she was standing in cold water, or who the child in her arms was, or why it mattered so much that she didn't let go. She just knew that she couldn't let go, couldn't stop, couldn't break the promise. Luna had gone quiet, completely still, except for shallow breathing against Kaya's neck. Stay with me, Ka tried to say, but the words came out garbled, foreign. Her grandmother's voice came through the cold. Not memory this time. Something deeper. Something that felt like presence. Fierce heart. You're stronger than you know. I'm not, Ka whispered. I'm not strong. I'm dying. You're still standing. I can't hold on much longer. You don't have to hold on much longer. You just have to hold on now. This second. This breath. And then the next. Ka lifted Luna higher. Her arms were dead weight now. She couldn't feel them anymore. But they obeyed. That's my girl. One more second. One more breath. 40 minutes in. 75. Her heart was barely beating. Her lungs were barely working. The ice had crawled up her chest, her neck, into her brain. She couldn't feel her arms anymore. Couldn't feel the weight of the child. Couldn't feel anything except a distant fading certainty that she had to hold on. She was still singing barely. A breath, a whisper, fragments of melody escaping lips that had forgotten how to form words. Sleep now. Little star. Somewhere far away. Sirens somewhere closer. Voices somewhere impossibly distant. Her own voice making a promise she no longer remembered. I'm not going to let go. At 45 minutes and 17 seconds. The rescue divers pulled Kaya White from Lake Tahoe with a 3-year-old girl still clutched in her arms. They found her fingers had frozen around Luna's coat, literally frozen, locked in place by ice and hypothermia and sheer impossible will. They had to pry her grip open to separate them. In the ambulance, the paramedic checked Kaya's core temperature with hands that shook slightly. Professional composure cracking. 73.4F. He looked at his partner, a woman who'd worked emergency medicine for 19 years, and said 3 words that would echo through medical conferences for years to come. This girl's dead. But she wasn't, not yet. And what happened next? What 1,500 Hell's Angels did when they learned her story wouldn't just make medical news. It would rewrite what an entire nation believed about family sacrifice, and the throwaway children society pretends not to see. The helicopter landed at renowned regional medical center at 7:34 a.m. with a patient who shouldn't have been breathing. Dr. Simone Park had worked emergency medicine for 17 years. She'd seen drownings, hypothermia cases, trauma that defied description. She'd learned to separate emotion from protocol, to make hard decisions with clinical detachment, to accept that some battles couldn't be won. But when they wheeled Kaya White through those doors, something in Simone's carefully constructed professional armor cracked. The girl was blue, not pale, blue, lips the color of deep bruises, fingernails black with frostbite, skin temperature so low the infrared thermometer kept throwing error messages. Core temp on arrival. Simone asked, already moving. 73.4, the flight paramedic said. His voice was tight. She coded twice in transport. We got her back both times. But she shouldn't be alive. Simone finished. No, ma'am, she shouldn't. They worked on core for a 47 minutes in Trauma Bay 3. Warming blankets, heated 5 fluids, cardiac monitoring that showed a heart beating so slowly it looked like a machine powering down at 8:21 a.m. Simone pulled off her gloves and looked at her team. She's stable for now. What's the prognosis? Asked Chen, the newest resident, still young enough to believe medicine could save everyone. Simone glanced at the monitors at the brain activity readings that should have shown robust neural function, but instead displayed patterns she associated with severe anoxic injury. Honestly, I'm not sure she wake up. And if she does, she started again. The human brain can't survive that long without adequate oxygen. She was in that water 45 minutes. The damage is almost certainly catastrophic, but she's breathing on her own, Jun said. Brain stem function doesn't mean higher cognition survived. Simone touched the girl's arm. Skin still cold, despite everything they'd done. Start calling neurology and find out who she is. Someone out there needs to know she's here. That someone turned out to be no one at all. No ID, no wallet, no phone. The van they'd found parked near the lake was registered to a Ruth White Horse, deceased 8 months prior. The girl herself carried nothing but a medicine pouch around her neck and a photograph in her thermal pocket. An older woman with braided grey hair and eyes that held fierce love. She's homeless, the social worker reported 2 hours later, or close to it, living in that van. The construction company she worked for says she showed up 3 weeks ago, gave a fake social security number, took cash payment. No emergency contact, no family they know of. Simone stared at the girl in the ICU bed. 19 years old, alone in the world, and she jumped into freezing water to save a stranger's child. What about the little girl? Simone asked. The one she pulled out, Luna Thornton, 3 years old. She's in pediatric 1CU, hypothermia, but mild compared to the social worker, gestured at core. She's going to be fine. Full recovery expected. Parents, father's the registered guardian. Marcus Thornton, tech CEO, big house in Aspen. We've been calling. But what? The social worker's expression went carefully neutral. He's not answering. Something cold settled in Simone's chest. The police said the driver fled the scene. Yes, ma'am. Was it him? The father? That's what they're investigating. Simone looked back at core, at this girl who'd given everything for a child whose own father had run, at a stranger who'd stood in killing water for 45 minutes, while the person responsible for that child's safety saved himself. Keep trying to reach him, Simone said quietly. And when you do, you tell him his daughter's alive, because of the girl in this bed. You make sure he knows that the problem was Marcus Thornton already knew, and he was doing everything in his power to make sure no one else found out. By noon, Kaya's condition had deteriorated. The cerebral edema Simone had feared began manifesting, brain tissue swelling pressing against the skull, cutting off blood flow to crucial areas. The monitors showed declining neural activity. The CT scans showed damage spreading. Simone stood in the imaging room, staring at those scans and felt the weight of a decision she didn't want to make settling on her shoulders. Chen appeared beside her. Dr. Park, Luna Thornton's asking for someone. Her father. No, she keeps saying the singing lady, the one who held her. She wants to see her. Simone closed her eyes. That's not possible. I know. I told her grandmother. She's with Luna now. But Dr. Park, Chen hesitated. That little girl keeps saying the same thing over and over. She promised she wouldn't let go. She doesn't break promises. The words hit Simone like a physical blow. She promised she wouldn't let go. Simone thought about the reports from the rescue divers about how they'd had to pry Kaya's frozen Fingers from Luna's coat, about 45 minutes of refusing to surrender when surrender was the only logical choice. Tell the grandmother I'll come talk to her, Simone said. And Chen, start calling neurologists. Every specialist we have. I want a full consult on the girl in ICU bed 7. We've already done that. They all say the same thing. Say it anyway out loud. Chen swallowed. They say the damage is too extensive, that even if she survives the next 48 hours, there's minimal chance of meaningful recovery, that the kindest thing would be to let her go. Simone finished. Yes. That's what they always say. 3 hours later, a man walked into the ICU waiting room who would change everything. Cole Ramirez didn't look like someone who belonged in a hospital. 6'3", 230 pounds of muscle and scar tissue. Grey beard braided down his chest. Arms covered in ink that told stories most people didn't want to hear. He wore leather and denim, and the kind of face that made security guards nervous. But when he approached the nurse's station, his voice was gentle. I'm here about the little girl from the lake, Luna Thornton. The nurse glanced at his Hell's Angels cut, and her hand moved toward the security button. Are you family? I'm her uncle, her mother's brother. That was a lie. Cole Ramirez had never met Luna's mother, but his club had been doing a charity toy run near Tahoe when the accident happened, and word traveled fast in the brotherhood. A child nearly drowned. A father fled the scene. A homeless girl turned hero. The details had hit Cole like a freight train. His own wife had died to a drunk driver 5 years ago, left him alone, childless, carrying rage he'd never quite learned to set down. Now another drunk driver had nearly killed a child, and another innocent had paid the price. She's in room 312, the nurse said, still wary. But visiting hours, I just need to see she's okay. 5 minutes. Something in his voice must have convinced her. She nodded. 5 minutes. Cole found Luna sleeping. A woman in her 60s sitting beside the bed. The grandmother, he guessed. I'm Cole, he said quietly from the doorway. I heard about what happened. Wanted to make sure she was all right. The grandmother looked up with eyes red from crying. She's alive. That's more than she should be. Because of the girl who pulled her out. Yes. The grandmother's voice broke. That girl stood in that water so long. Luna says. She kept singing. Kept promising she wouldn't let go even when she couldn't finish. Cole felt something twist in his chest. Where's Luna's father? The grandmother's expression hardened. Gone. Hasn't called. Hasn't come. My daughter's lawyer says he's in Aspen, claiming he needs time to process the trauma. The trauma he caused by driving drunk with a 3-year-old in the car. That's being investigated. Is it? Cole's voice went flat. And the girl who saved his daughter, where is she? The grandmother pointed down the hall. I see you, but they say, her voice dropped to a whisper. They say she might not wake up, that her brain was without oxygen too long. Cole stood very still. What's her name? Kaa. Cole Whitehorse, 19 years old. Homeless. No family. We can find. The grandmother looked at him with sudden intensity. She gave everything to save my granddaughter, and now she's dying alone. Cole had made a lot of decisions in his 51 years. Most of them had been wrong, but standing in that hallway, learning that a 19-year-old girl had sacrificed herself for a stranger's child, while that child's father ran, something crystallized in his mind with absolute clarity. She's not alone anymore, he said. He found Dr. Simone Park in the ICU, standing beside Kaya's bed with the posture of someone carrying impossible weight. Are you family? Simone asked without turning. I am now. That made her turn. She studied Cole's face, his cut, the hard-earned scars. And who exactly are you? Cole Ramirez, president of the Reno Hells Angels. That girl saved my niece's life. Luna Thornton is your niece. She's today. Cole moved closer to the bed. Looked down at Kaya's blue-tinged skin. The monitors showing a heartbeat that shouldn't exist. The breathing that was too shallow to sustain life much longer. How is she? Simone's professional mask slipped slightly. She's dying. The brain damage from oxygen deprivation is extensive. Even if we manage to stabilize her, the likelihood of meaningful recovery is don't. Cole's voice cut through the clinical assessment. Don't tell me what's likely. Tell me what's possible. Mr. Ramirez, Cole, and I'm not asking for false hope. I'm asking what you can do if resources are concerned. Simone blinked. I'm not sure I understand. This girl stood in water cold enough to kill her for 45 minutes. She destroyed her hands punching through a car window. She kept a stranger's child alive when her own body was shutting down. And she did it because it was right, not because anyone would thank her or pay her or remember her name. Cole's voice was rough. Now you're telling me the kindest thing is to let her go, to give up on her the way everyone else in her life already has. That's not, isn't it? Cole gestured at the empty room. Where's her family? Her friends? Anyone who loves her? She's 19 years old, and she's dying alone in this room because she was the only person brave enough to do what Luna's own father wouldn't. Simone felt tears burning behind her eyes. Even with unlimited resources, the odds. I don't care about odds. I care about what's right. Cole pulled out his phone, fingers moving quickly. I'm about to make some calls. By tonight, there will be brothers from every chapter in 3 states outside this hospital. We're going to raise money. We're going to fund whatever treatment you think might work. Experimental protocols, specialist consultations, whatever it takes. Mr. Ramirez Cole, you need to understand the brain damage is severe. The statistical likelihood of recovery is effectively 0. Your statistics didn't account for this girl, Cole said quietly. They didn't account for someone standing in, killing water for 45 minutes. When every medical model says that's impossible, they didn't account for her keeping her promise when breaking it would have saved her life. He looked Simone in the eye. So, I'm asking you directly, will you fight for her the way she fought for that little girl? Simone looked at this stranger, who'd become a symbol of something Simone had forgotten after 17 years in emergency medicine. The idea that sometimes the right thing to do was refuse to accept the statistically probable outcome. There's an experimental protocol, Simone said slowly. ECMO with therapeutic hypothermia cycling. We've used it for severe hypothermia cases, but never with this level of axic brain injury. It would require round-the-clock monitoring, multiple specialists, equipment we'd have to bring in from other facilities, cost $1 million, maybe more, and insurance won't cover experimental treatment. Then we'll pay cash. Cole was already texting. What else do you need? Honestly, a miracle. She's already given us one. Least we can do is believe she's got another one in her. Simone felt something shift in her chest. The clinical detachment she'd relied on for almost a decade cracked completely, and beneath it, she found something she'd thought she'd lost: hope. I'll assemble the team, she said. We start tonight. Cole nodded. Then he did something that surprised both of them. He took Kaya's hand, the one wrapped in bandages from punching through glass, and held it gently. You hear that, kid? We're not giving up on you. You didn't let go of that little girl, and we're not letting go of you. His voice broke slightly. So, you keep fighting. You hear me? You keep fighting. The monitors beeped steadily. Kaya's chest rose and fell with mechanical regularity. There was no sign she'd heard anything, but Cole stayed there holding her hand until security finally made him leave at midnight. And by then, there were 73 motorcycles in the parking lot. By the next morning, there would be 200. And by the time the Tesla's dash camera footage hit the internet 18 hours later, showing Marcus Thornton swimming away while his daughter screamed, the world would learn what happened when you abandoned your child and a stranger refused to do the same. The footage was released by an anonymous source at 11:47 p.m. Someone in law enforcement or insurance investigation who'd watched it and decided the public deserved to know the truth. Tesla's cameras recorded everything: the drunk driving, the crash, the interior view of Luna strapped in her car seat as water poured in, and most damning, the exterior camera showing Marcus squeeze through the driver's window surface, look back at his daughter's face pressed against the rear glass, and make a conscious choice. He swam away. The video showed Kaya appearing 23 seconds later, running, diving, punching through glass with her bare hands, pulling Luna out. And then because the camera kept recording until the car's battery died, it showed Kaya standing in that water, holding Luna above the surface, trying again and again to climb out, failing, staying anyway. The video ended at 41 minutes, the battery finally drowning, but 41 minutes was enough. By 2 a.m., the video had 3 million views. By dawn, 17 million. By noon the next day, it would hit 68 million. And Marcus Thornton's carefully constructed life would begin collapsing like a house of cards in a windstorm. Cole was in the ICU waiting room when his phone started buzzing with notifications. He watched the video once with his jaw clenched, then called his vice president. "Dutch, you watching this?" "Yeah, brother. Everyone's watching this." "Good. Get on the phone. Every chapter from here to the Mississippi. I want them to see what this girl did. And I want them to see what that coward did to his own daughter." "Already started." "Cole." Dutch's voice was rough. "We've got brothers asking what we're going to do about this. We're going to make sure justice happens the right way, legal way. But if the system fails, we'll be ready." Cole ended the call and walked back to Ka's room. Dr. Park was there adjusting monitors, and she looked up when he entered. "The video's out," Cole said. "I know. I've watched it 4 times. Simone's voice was shaking. "I told you yesterday we should let her go, that the brain damage was too severe, that the kindest thing was to stop fighting. You were doing your job." "No, I was giving up on her because the numbers said to." Simone looked at Cole with tears streaming down her face. "But she didn't give up. For 45 minutes, she stood there and she didn't give up. And she couldn't finish." Cole put a hand on her shoulder. "You're fighting for her now. That's what matters. Is it enough?" "Has to be. Because if we lose this girl after what she did," Cole's voice went hard, "then we're all complicit in telling people that heroism doesn't matter, that sacrifice is for suckers, that the Marcus Thornton of the world win." Simone wiped her eyes. "The ECMO team arrives in 3 hours. We'll start the protocol tonight." "How long until we know if it's working?" "Days, maybe weeks." She looked at him. "You should know even with everything we're doing. The odds are still." "Don't tell me odds." Cole said. "Tell me you believe she can make it." Simone looked at Kaya for a long moment, at this girl who defied every medical model, every statistical probability, every rational expectation. "Yeah," she said finally. "Yeah, I believe she can make it." Outside, the parking lot was filling with motorcycles. Inside, Kaya's heart kept beating. And somewhere in Aspen, Marcus Thornton watched his phone explode with death threats and started to understand that wealth couldn't protect him from the consequences he'd spent a lifetime avoiding. The war was just beginning. And this time, the girl who knew how to survive winter wasn't fighting alone. The video hit 100 million views in 36 hours and Marcus Thornton's lawyers stopped returning his calls. He sat in his Aspen mansion, watching his empire disintegrate in real time. Stock in his company dropped 42% in a single trading session. Board members demanded his resignation. 3 major investors pulled funding. His ex-wife's attorney filed emergency custody motions that not even his legal team could delay. But the worst part, the thing that made Marcus's hands shake, she poured his 4th vodka of the morning, were the death threats, thousands of them flooding every platform, every inbox, every comment section. People promising to find him, hurt him, make him pay for what he'd done. And leading that chorus were the Hells Angels, whose online presence made it clear they knew exactly where he was. "You need to turn yourself in," his primary attorney said over the phone. "The optics of hiding while that girl fights for her life." "I'm not hiding. I'm recovering from trauma." "Marcus, the video shows you swimming away from your daughter. There's no spin that makes that look good. It was instinct survival response. I wasn't thinking clearly." "Tell that to the FBI. They're opening a federal investigation. Vehicular assault, child endangerment, leaving the scene. You're looking at 25 years if this goes to trial." Marcus felt the room spin. To 5 years minimum. "And that's if we get a sympathetic jury, which we won't because every potential juror has watched that video and sees you as a monster." The attorney's voice softened slightly. Turn yourself in. Show remorse. Cooperate fully. It's your only play. Marcus ended the call and threw his phone across the room. He'd spent his entire life avoiding consequences. 23 years of wealth and connections and lawyers who knew how to make problems disappear. But this problem wouldn't disappear. This problem had a name, Colwhite, and she'd done something Marcus's money couldn't undo. She'd shown the world who he really was. 300 meters away, Dr. Simon Park was learning that medical miracles required more than belief. They required blood, sweat, and a willingness to gamble everything on impossible odds. The ECMO protocol had started at midnight on day 3, because heart had stopped twice during setup. They'd restarted it both times, but the second time took 9 minutes and left everyone in the room shaking. Brain activity is declining, Chen reported at 4 a.m., staring at monitors with exhausted eyes. We're losing her. No, we're not. Simon adjusted the oxygen flow, recalculated medication dosages, made decisions based on instinct more than evidence. Increase the warming rate by 3. And get me another neuroconsult, Dr. Park. We've already consulted with. Then consult again. Find someone who will tell me something other than she's dying. But everyone told her the same thing. The damage was too extensive. The oxygen deprivation too prolonged. The swelling too severe. Even with ECMO. Even with experimental protocols. Even with everything they were doing. Kaya White was going to die. Simone refused to accept it. She worked 18-hour shifts, sleeping in the ICU break room, living on coffee and rage. Cole brought her food she didn't eat and words of encouragement that barely registered. The team rotated around her, but Simone stayed constant, watching those monitors like she could will them to show improvement. On day 5, coded again. This time, it took 14 minutes to bring her back, and when they did, her brain activity was so low the machines could barely detect it. Simone, Dr. Marcus Webb, Chief of Neurology, pulled her aside. You need to accept this isn't working. The ECMO is keeping her heart beating, but her brain is already gone. The scans show massive cell death across multiple regions. She's not coming back. You don't know that. Yes, I do. 28 years of neurology tells me exactly what's happening in that girl's head. She's effectively brain dead. The kindest thing. Don't. Simone's voice cracked. Don't tell me what's kind. She stood in freezing water for 45 minutes because it was kind. She destroyed her hands because it was kind. She kept breathing long enough to save a child because kind was the only thing that mattered to her. So, don't tell me the kind thing is to quit. Marcus Webb was quiet for a moment. What are you really fighting for here? Her recovery or your own guilt? The question hit like a physical blow. Simone thought about that first night, about how quickly she'd wanted to give up, about how she'd looked at numbers instead of the human being in front of her, about how close she'd come to being part of the system that had failed Kaya her entire life. Maybe both, she said finally. But does it matter if I can save her? Does it matter why? It matters if you're torturing her for your own conscience. She's not in pain, the coma. You don't know that. You don't know what she's experiencing, or if keeping her alive like this is mercy or cruelty. Webb touched her shoulder gently. Sometimes the bravest thing a doctor can do is let go. As Simone looked through the window at Kaya's still form, at the machines doing work her body couldn't, at a life hanging by threads so thin they might already be broken. She didn't let go. Simone whispered. For 45 minutes, she didn't let go. How can I? Webb had no answer for that. Outside, the gathering was becoming something nobody had anticipated. By day 6, there were 500 motorcycles in the hospital parking lot. By day 8, 800. They came from Nevada, California, Oregon, Idaho, Utah, Hell's Angels chapters making pilgrimages to witness something that transcended club politics or territorial disputes. They came because Ku's story had become their story. The outsider who proved herself, the throwaway who became a hero, the kid with nothing who gave everything, They came because Cole Ramirez had called in every favor, every connection, every bond of brotherhood he'd built over 30 years in the club. And they came because the video had shown them something they needed to see, proof that honor still mattered in a world that increasingly said it did in single quotes brother. Dutch Morrison said on day 7, standing with Cole in the parking lot as another convoy of bikes rolled in. We've got chapters from as far as Texas calling, wanting to know if they should come. What do I tell them? Cole watched the steady stream of leather and chrome. Tell them to come. Tell them all to come, because when this girl wakes up, if she wakes up, when Cole said firmly, when she wakes up, I want her to see what she started. I want her to understand she's not alone anymore. Dutch was quiet. Then what if she doesn't wake up? Cole's jaw tightened. Then I want the world to see how many people refused to forget her. How many showed up. How many said her life mattered. He turned to Dutch. Either way, we're not leaving until this ends. Luna asked about Cole every day. Her grandmother brought her to the hospital despite doctors' recommendations, despite the crowds, despite everything. The little girl needed to see that the singing lady was still there, still fighting, still keeping her promise. Can I go in? Luna asked on day 9, pressing her face against the ICU window. Not yet, sweetheart. Why not? She's very sick. The doctors are helping her because she saved me. Luna said it like a fact. Simple and undeniable. She got Cole saving me. The grandmother felt tears burn. Yes, baby. I want to help her back. We're all trying to help her. Luna was quiet, thinking with the serious intensity only small children could manage. She sang to me in the water. Can I sing to her? The grandmother looked at the nurse's station, at the guards who'd been posted because the crowds made hospital security nervous, at the machinery of institutional protocol that said sick people needed quiet and isolation. I don't think they'll let us, please. Luna's voice was small but determined. She sang to me when I was scared. Now she's scared and I should sing back. That's fair. Something in that simple logic broke through every objection. The grandmother walked to the nurse's station with Luna in her arms. My granddaughter wants to sing to the girl who saved her life just for a minute through the window if necessary. The nurse looked uncertain. I'm not sure. She's 3 years old, and she hasn't stopped asking about course since she woke up. Please. The nurse glanced at Kaya's room, at the machines keeping her 19-year-old alive at monitors showing brain activities so low it barely registered. 1 minute, she said, and only if Dr. Park approves. Simone appeared from the break room, looking like she hadn't slept in days. She listened to the request with exhausted eyes. Yes, she said simply. Yes, bring her in. They brought Luna to Kaya's bedside, and the little girl looked at the tubes, the bandages, the stillness with solemn understanding that someone who'd been that close to death could recognize it in others. Hi, Luna whispered. It's me, the one you saved. Kaya didn't respond. The machines beeped steadily. Luna reached out carefully and touched Kaya's bandaged hand. You promised you wouldn't let go. Remember? You said it in the water. Her voice strengthened. I'm not letting go either. So, you have to wake up. That's how promises work. Then she started singing. The Northern Cheyenne lullaby Kaya had sung to her. The words probably wrong, but the melody pure and clear. Sleep now, little star. Morning's coming from afar. Hold tight through the night. Dawn will bring the light. Simone watched the monitors, watched for any change, any flicker, any sign that some part of Kaya heard and understood. Nothing changed. Luna sang the whole song twice, then kissed Kaya's hand and let her grandmother carry her out. Simone stood alone in the room, feeling hope drain away. They were losing this fight. All the protocols, all the technology, all the refusal to quit. It wasn't enough. Kaya was slipping away, and there was nothing Simone could do to stop it. She turned to leave, and that's when she heard it. A change in the monitors. Not much. Just a slight variation in heart rate. A flicker on the EEG showing increased brain activity. Simone spun back to the machine's heart hammering. Jun, get in here. Chen ran in. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Look at the readings. Chen stared at the monitors. That's not possible. Her brain activity is increasing. I know, but she's been declining for 6 days. This doesn't make sense. Simone looked at Ka's face, at the first hint of color, returning to blue-tinged skin. Maybe it doesn't have to make sense. Over the next 3 hours, the impossible continued happening. Brain activity increased. Vital signs strengthened. The swelling that had been crushing Ka's normal tissue began impossibly to recede. I don't understand, Marcus Webb said, staring at the scans. This contradicts everything we know about anoxic brain injury. She should be getting worse, not better. But she's not, Simone said. She's healing. This doesn't happen. Patients don't spontaneously recover from this level of damage. This patient is. Webb shook his head slowly. If I wasn't looking at these scans myself, I wouldn't believe it. I don't even have words for this. Miracle, Simone said quietly. The word you're looking for is miracle. On day 11, Ka's fingers twitched. Cole was sitting beside her bed when it happened, reading aloud from a book about wilderness survival he'd bought, because it seemed like something she'd appreciate. He saw the movement so slight, he almost missed it and grabbed for the call button. Something's happening. The team rushed in. They checked monitors, ran tests, documented everything with shaking hands. Voluntary motor response, Chen said, voice cracking with emotion. She's regaining muscle control. What does that mean? Cole demanded. Simone looked at him with tears streaming. It means she's coming back. Day 12 brought more movement. Facial muscles twitching, eyelids fluttering, fingers gripping when Cole held her hand and asked her to squeeze. Day 13. Brain scans showed activity in regions that had been dark for over a week. Neural pathways reconnecting, synapses firing. A brain that should have been dead slowly, impossibly coming back to life. And on day 14 at 6:43 in the morning, Cole White opened her eyes. Simone was there, Cole was there, and through someone's spoken understanding, Luna was there, too, sitting in Cole's lap, watching the singing lady with enormous eyes. Ka's gaze drifted across the ceiling, the machines, the faces around her. Confusion flickered across her features. Ka, Simone said softly, "Can you hear me?" Ka's lips moved. No sound came out at first. Then so quiet it was almost inaudible. Luna. The little girl wiggled out of Cole's arms and pressed close to the bed. "I'm here. You waked up. You kept your promise." Ka's eyes found Luna's face. Something like a smile ghosted across her cracked lips. Promise. You said you wouldn't let go. And you didn't. Luna was crying now, tears streaming down her small face. You kept me safe. And now you're awake and everything's okay. Ka's hand moved slowly, shakily, until her fingers brushed Luna's. "You're okay. I'm perfect. The doctor said so because of you." Ka's eyes closed. "Good. That's good. Don't go back to sleep," Luna said urgently. "You just wake up. Just tired," Kaya whispered. "So tired." "That's okay," Cole said, his voice rough. "You rest. We'll be here when you wake up again." All of us. Single quotes. His eyes opened once more, finding Cole's face. Who are you?" "I'm Cole. He stopped. Started again. "I'm family if you'll have me." Cole looked confused, but too exhausted to ask questions. Her eyes drifted shut. Simone checked the monitors with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. "She's sleeping. Natural sleep. Not coma." She couldn't finish. "Impossible," Chen offered. "Impossible," Simone agreed. "And happening anyway." She walked out of the room and found the nearest bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and sobbed. 17 years of emergency medicine, and she'd never seen anything like this, never witnessed a recovery that defied every statistical model, every medical certainty, every rational prediction. She'd been ready to give up on Carr, ready to accept that some battles couldn't be won, ready to tell Cole and Luna and everyone else that hope was a lie. She'd been wrong. And standing in that bathroom, mascara running, professional composure shattered, Simone made a promise to herself. She would never make that mistake again, would never look at numbers instead of people, would never forget that medicine wasn't about probabilities. It was about the human capacity to survive impossible things. It was about girls like Kaya White who stood in freezing water for 45 minutes because a promise mattered more than survival. The news broke at 9 a.m. Miracle Girl wakes up. The media explosion was instantaneous. Every network picked it up. Every platform went wild. The girl from the video, the one who'd stood in that water, the one doctor said would never recover. She was awake, and the motorcycles kept coming. By noon, there were 1,200. By 300 p.m., 1,400. They poured in from every direction, every chapter, every corner of the country. The hospital had to close surrounding streets. Police gave up trying to manage traffic and just created barriers to contain the overflow. Cole stood in the parking lot watching the steady stream and felt something crack open in his chest. This wasn't just about Cole anymore. This was about every throwaway kid, every person the system had failed, every human being who'd been told their life didn't matter. This was about proving that wrong. Dutch appeared beside him. Brother, we're at 1,500 and still counting. Guinness is sending someone to verify. They think we might be breaking a record. How's Kaya? Stable. Awake for a few minutes every hour asking questions. Dr. Park says full recovery is possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. Cole felt tears burning. She's going to make it. Yeah, Dutch said. She is. And when she's strong enough, we need to tell her something. What's that? Tell her Marcus Thornton was arrested an hour ago. FBI raid. Perf walk in front of about 100 cameras. His lawyers couldn't save him this time. Cole's expression went hard. Good. Where is he now? County jail. Bail denied. Prosecutors asking for maximum sentence on all charges. How long? 25 years, if they get a conviction. And Brother Dutch smiled grimly. They're going to get a conviction. The video, the abandoned daughter, the homeless girl he left to die saving his kid. No jury's going to let him walk. Cole looked at the sea of motorcycles, at 1,500 people who'd come to witness something bigger than themselves. When Ka's ready, we bring her out here. Let her see what she started. You think she want that? I think she needs to see she matters, that she's not alone, that 1,500 people rode from all over the country just to tell her she's one of us now. Dutch nodded slowly. And if she doesn't want to join the family, then we tell her the family chose her anyway. And we mean it, inside. Carl woke again at 4 p.m. and this time stayed conscious for 20 minutes. Long enough to hear about Marcus' arrest. Long enough to understand what the sound outside meant. Not traffic, but engines. Hundreds of them. They're here for you, Simone explained. Motorcycle clubs from across the country. They came to make sure you knew you're not alone. Kaya's eyes were wet. I don't understand. I just did what anyone would do. No, Cole said. You did what almost no one would do. You stood in killing water for 45 minutes. You kept a promise when breaking it would have saved your life. And you showed 1,500 bikers and about 100 million people watching online what real courage looks like. I'm not brave, Kaya whispered. I was terrified the whole time. That's what makes it brave, Cole said. Doing it anyway. Cole closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there was something different in her expression. Something harder. My grandmother used to say, the measure of a person isn't what they do when people are watching. It's what they do when no one will ever know. Your grandmother sounds like she was a wise woman. She died because the tribal council wouldn't approve her medical transport. They said it wasn't worth the expense for someone her age. Ka's voice was flat. I reported them, brought evidence, testified in front of the whole council, and they blacklisted me for it. Told everyone in the community was a liar and a troublemaker. I lost everything, but you didn't lose yourself. Simone said quietly, you could have become bitter, angry, but instead you jumped into freezing water for a stranger's child, because that's who my grandmother raised me to be. Carl looked at Cole. You said your family. You don't know me. I know enough. I know you're the kind of person who keeps promises, who stands up for what's right, even when it costs everything, who saves children while their fathers run away. Cole leaned forward. I know you're exactly the kind of person I want in my family. Car was quiet for a long time. Finally, I don't know how to be in a family anymore. Don't know how to trust people. Neither did I, Cole said. Lost my wife 5 years ago. Drunk driver. Left me alone, angry. Not sure I wanted to keep going. But the brotherhood gave me reason, gave me purpose. Let me turn pain into something useful. He pulled something from his pocket. A silver chain with a simple ring. This was my wife's wedding ring. She wore it every day until she died. I've carried it ever since, waiting for the right person to give it to. He held it out. I want you to have it. Not because you've earned it. You've earned more than I could ever give. But because when I look at you, I see the kind of strength my wife had. The kind of courage. The kind of heart that refuses to quit, even when quitting is the only logical choice. Cole stared at the ring. I can't take that. You already did. You took it when you stood in that water. When you kept singing. Even when your body was dying. When you refused to let go. Cole's voice broke. Please let me be your family. Let us be your family. Because you saved Luna. And in doing that, you saved me. Too. Cole reached out with shaking hands and took the ring. Held it like it was made of light instead of silver. Okay, she whispered. Okay. I'll try. Cole felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. That's all I'm asking. Just try. Outside. The 1500th motorcycle arrived, and the sound of those engines was like thunder promising storm, like drums declaring war, like 1,500 hearts beating in unison to tell one girl that she mattered, that she was seen, that she would never be alone again. And in a federal holding cell 300 meters away, Marcus Thornton listened to his court-appointed attorney explain what life looked like when wealth couldn't buy immunity, and wondered how he'd become the villain in a story he'd thought was about his survival. The answer was simple, though he'd never understand it. He'd always been the villain. Carl White had just made sure everyone else knew it, too. The federal courthouse was surrounded by so many motorcycles, the police stopped trying to count. Marcus Thornton's arraignment was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Thursday morning. 3 weeks after Carl woke up, by 7 a.m., there were 400 bikes lining the streets. By 8:30, 700. They stood in absolute silence, arms crossed, leather cuts gleaming in morning sun, watching every entrance like sentinels, guarding the gates of justice. Marcus arrived in a prison transport van with his hands cuffed and his $50,000 suit wrinkled from sleeping in a cell. He looked out at the sea of bikers and felt something he'd spent 42 years avoiding. Fear. Keep moving, the marshal said, guiding him toward the courthouse steps. That's when someone started singing. A voice from deep in the crowd, rough and off-key, but carrying clearly in the morning air. Sleep now, little star. Others joined in, dozens. Then hundreds. The Northern Cheyenne lullaby card sung to Luna, becoming an anthem, a judgment, a reminder of what Marcus had left behind when he swam for shore. Mornings coming from afar. Marcus stumbled. The marshal caught him, kept him moving, but Marcus couldn't stop hearing it, couldn't stop seeing Kaya's face on every screen, every newspaper, every nightmare that woke him at 3 a.m. in his cell. Hold tight through the night. They pushed him through the courthouse doors, and the singing faded, but Marcus could still hear it echoing in his skull, inside. His attorney was waiting with the expression of someone delivering a terminal diagnosis. They're offering 20 years if you plead guilty to all charges. Michael Chen said he'd been Marcus' lawyer for 12 years, had gotten him out of 3 DUIs, 2 assault charges, 1 securities fraud investigation. It's the best deal we're going to get. 20 years. You're lucky they're offering anything. The video has 140 million views. You're the most hated man in America right now. The prosecutor wants to make an example. I wasn't thinking clearly. It was panic. Survival instinct. Marcus. Chen's voice was tired. Stop. The jury isn't going to believe that. No one believes that you swam away from your 3-year-old daughter while she was drowning. There's no explanation that makes that okay. So, what? I just give up. Accept 20 years. You accept reality. You abandoned your child. A homeless teenager nearly died saving her. The contrast couldn't be starker. Chen leaned forward. The prosecutor has forensic psychologists ready to testify about your pattern of behavior. 12 prior DUIs, 8 assault charges, evidence of narcissistic personality disorder. They're going to paint you as a monster. And the jury is going to believe them, because the video shows them a monster. Marcus felt his carefully constructed world continuing to collapse. What if I go to trial? Then you get 30 years minimum, probably more. The judge hates you. I saw her face when they played the video in chambers. She's going to throw the book at you. Chen stood. Take the deal. Show remorse. Cooperate fully. It's the only way you see freedom again, before you're 62. Marcus looked at his hands at the Italian leather shoes that cost $3,000, of the life that had seemed so permanent, so protected, now revealed as paper thin. When do I have to decide? Now, they want an answer before the arraignment. Marcus thought about Luna, about how she'd looked at him in the custody hearing before all this, small face full of confusion and hurt, about how she'd never look at him again except through prison glass. He thought about Kaya White, who'd given everything while he'd saved only himself. Tell them yes, Marcus said quietly. I'll take the deal. Chen nodded and left to make the call. Marcus sat alone in the holding cell and wondered if 20 years was punishment enough for the man he'd become. It wasn't. But it was a start. The arraignment lasted 12 minutes. Marcus pleaded guilty to 4 counts of felony child endangerment, 3 counts of vehicular assault, 1 count of leaving the scene of an accident involving serious injury. The judge accepted the plea agreement and set sentencing for 6 weeks later. As they led Marcus out, he saw Luna in the gallery with her grandmother. The little girl looked right through him. He was already gone. Maybe he was outside. The bikers were still there, still silent, still watching. And when Marcus's transport van pulled away, they started their engines in unison, and the sound was like the earth itself passing judgment. Cole watched the arraignment on a tablet from her hospital bed, with Cole sitting beside her. She'd been awake for 4 days now, getting stronger every hour, but still too weak to leave the ICU. The doctor said another week minimum before discharge. Physical therapy after that. Months of recovery ahead. But she was alive, and every day she woke up was another day she'd survived impossible odds. How do you feel? Cole asked when the video ended. Seeing him plead guilty. Carr was quiet for a long moment. Empty. I thought I'd feel satisfaction or relief or something, but I just feel empty. That's normal. Is it? He left his daughter to die. I nearly died saving her, and now he's going to prison, and I'm supposed to feel like justice was served. But she stopped, struggling for words. It doesn't change anything. Doesn't undo what happened. Doesn't give me back the 45 minutes or the frostbite or the brain damage that almost killed me. Cole took her hand carefully, mindful of the bandages still covering shredded palms. Justice isn't about undoing the past. It's about making sure the future is different. That man is going to prison. That matters. Not because it fixes what he did, but because it tells every other Marcus Thornton out there that they can't buy their way out of consequences anymore. But they do. Most of them do. Cause voice was bitter. He got caught because there was a video. Because it went viral. What about all the times there's no video? All the times rich people destroy lives and no one ever knows. You're right. System's broken. Has been for a long time. Cole squeezed her hand gently. But you broke through it. You did something so impossible, so remarkable that even the broken system couldn't ignore it. And now people are paying attention to you, to stories like yours, to every kid the system failed. Cole looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. What happens when the attention fades? When people move on to the next viral story, then we make sure the changes stick. We make sure your story becomes more than a moment. Cole pulled out his phone, showed her something he'd been working on. We're starting a foundation, the White Horse Foundation, for homeless youth, foster kids, anyone who fell through the cracks. We've already raised $3.2 million. Kaya stared at the screen. 3 million from people who watched that video and wanted to do something, wanted to make sure no other kid ends up living in a van because the system gave up on them. He scrolled through messages. We've got legal advocates volunteering, social workers, therapists, people who want to help because you showed them it matters. I just jumped in the water. You did more than that. You survived. And surviving when everyone expects you to die is the most revolutionary thing you can do. Car felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't know how to be revolutionary. I'm just tired. Then rest. Let us carry this for a while. Let us build something that honors what you did. Cole's voice was gentle. And when you're ready, when you're strong again, you can decide what part you want to play. But right now, you don't have to be anything except alive. The simplicity of that hit Cole like a wave. She'd spent so long fighting, surviving, proving she deserved to exist. The idea that she could just rest, just be alive without earning it, felt foreign and terrifying and deeply necessary. Okay. She whispered. Okay. Luna visited every day, bringing drawings and stories and the kind of absolute faith only children possessed. On day 6 of consciousness, she brought something different. A letter written in crayon, with spelling, that made Simon smile and cry simultaneously. Dear Car, Luna read aloud, sounding out each word carefully. Thank you for not letting go. You are my hero. I love you. Your friend. Luna. Car took the letter with shaking hands. This is the most beautiful thing anyone's ever given me. Really. Luna's face lit up. You like it? I love it. I'm going to keep it forever. Good. Because you're my sister now, Cole said. He said, you're part of the family and that means you're my sister and I never had a sister before and I'm really happy. Car looked at Cole, who was standing in the doorway trying not to cry. You told her I'm her sister. If that's okay with you, Cole said. I know we haven't made it official yet, but it's okay. Car pulled Luna into a careful hug, mindful of all the tubes and wires still connecting her to machines. It's more than okay. Luna snuggled close. Can you sing to me the song from the water? I'm not sure I remember all the words. That's okay. I'll help. So they sang together. This child and the teenager who'd saved her life. Voices blending in the sterile ICU room, while nurses stopped to listen and Cole finally let himself cry. The Northern Cheyenne Tribal Council arrived on day 8, 5 members in traditional dress, led by an elderly man, Joseph White, who'd been Kaya's grandmother's brother. They asked to speak with her privately, and Cole wanted to refuse, wanted to protect her from people who'd heard her before. But Kaya said yes. She'd known this was coming. Joseph began, settling into a chair beside her bed. We've come to apologize. Apologize. Ka's voice was flat. For what specifically? Letting my grandmother die. Blacklisting me when I reported it or telling everyone was a liar. Joseph flinched. All of it. We were wrong. Terribly wrong. Why? Because I'm famous now. Because my story went viral and ignoring me became politically inconvenient. Because we let politics and pride blind us to truth. Joseph's voice was heavy with shame. Your grandmother came to us begging for medical transport. We refused because the council had voted to cut spending, because approving her request would mean admitting we'd made a mistake, and because he stopped, gathered himself, because your grandmother had always opposed our decisions, and we were tired of her voice. So, you let her die to silence her. Yes, the word fell like a stone. We let her die, and when you tried to hold us accountable, when you brought evidence of our negligence, we destroyed your reputation rather than face what we'd done. We banished you from the community, ensured no one would hire you, made you an exile in your own homeland. Koff felt old anger stirring. And now you want forgiveness because the whole world is watching. No, we want to confess because the whole world is watching and we can't hide anymore. Joseph leaned forward. The FBI opened an investigation into your grandmother's death. 3 council members are facing criminal charges. Our entire governance structure is under review. And all of it happened because you survived. Because your story made people ask questions about how a Northern Cheyenne girl ended up homeless. Good. I hope they tear the whole corrupt system down. So do I. Josep's honesty seemed to surprise even himself. I spent 20 years on that council, protecting power instead of people. Your grandmother tried to tell me, tried to show me we'd lost our way. I ignored her, and then she died because of my pride. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a medicine pouch worn smooth with age. This was hers. She wore it every day. I took it from her belongings after she passed. I should have given it to you, should have honored her wishes, but I was too ashamed to face you. Carl recognized it immediately. Her grandmother had made it when Carl was 7, filled it with sage and sweet grass and the small stones Kalia collected from the river. She'd thought it was lost forever. She wanted you to have it, Joseph said. Wanted you to remember that you carry fierce heart in your blood, that the strength to stand against corruption, to speak truth even when it costs everything, is your inheritance. Carl took the pouch with trembling hands, held it against her chest, and felt something she hadn't felt since her grandmother died. Connection, belonging, home. The council voted unanimously. Joseph continued, "We want you to come home, not as an exile, but as an honored elder. Your grandmother's house is yours. Her land is yours. And we're establishing a youth advocacy position in her name. Full salary, full benefits, autonomy to investigate and report any concerns without political interference. You want to pay me to do what got me blacklisted?" Kaya's laugh was sharp. "That's rich. We want to pay you to keep doing what you've always done. Speak truth. Protect the vulnerable. Refuse to let power go unchecked." Joseph's voice broke. "We want to give you what we should have given your grandmother. Respect, support, the community she deserved." Kaya was quiet for a long time. "I don't know if I can come back. Too much has happened. Too much damage. I understand. The invitation stands whenever you're ready. If you're ever ready." Joseph stood slowly, his age showing. "I'm sorry, Ka. That doesn't begin to cover what we did to you. But it's all I have. I'm sorry." After they left, Cole came back in. "You okay?" "I don't know. They apologized, offered me everything I wanted 2 years ago." Kaya looked at the medicine pouch. "But it doesn't feel like winning, just feels like more loss, because apologies don't resurrect the dead." Cole said, "Don't undo the harm, but they're still important. They still matter, do they? My grandmother's still gone. I still lost 2 years of my life living in a van. I still nearly died in that lake. Yeah, and the system that failed you is finally being held accountable. That matters. Maybe not to you right now, maybe not enough, but it matters to the next kid who needs help. To the next person who tries to speak truth to power." Kaya closed her eyes. "I'm so tired of mattering, tired of being a symbol. I just want to be a person again. Then be a person. Be my daughter, Luna's sister. Part of a family that chose you." Cole touched the ring, still hanging around her neck. "Let the foundation and the laws and the justice system carry the weight of changing the world. You just focus on healing. What if I can't heal? What if this broke something that doesn't fix?" Cole sat down heavily. "Then we'll be broken together, and we'll figure out how to keep living anyway. That's what family does." The sentencing hearing happened on week 7. Marcus Thornton stood before Judge Patricia Morrison with his head bowed and his lawyer beside him. The courtroom was packed. Media, victims, advocates, bikers from 3 states who'd driven through the night to witness this moment. Kaya was there, too, released from the hospital 2 days prior, still weak, but determined to see this through. She sat between Cole and Luna, the little girl holding her hands tightly. "Mr. Thornton," Judge Morrison began, her voice carrying the weight of 30 years on the bench. "I've presided over thousands of cases. I've seen humanity at its worst and occasionally at its best. But I've rarely seen such a clear contrast between courage and cowardice as this case presents." Marcus kept his head down. "The video shows everything. Your intoxication, your recklessness, the moment you looked at your daughter drowning and chose to save yourself." And then the judge's voice hardened. "Then it shows Kaya Whitehorse doing what you wouldn't, standing in water that was killing her, refusing to let go, keeping your daughter alive for 45 minutes while you ran. Your Honor, if I may, Marcus' lawyer started. You may not. I've read your client's statement. I've heard his expressions of remorse. I've reviewed the psychiatric evaluations suggesting he's learned from this experience. Morrison leaned forward. But I've also read the reports of 12 prior incidents where your client faced consequences and used wealth and connections to avoid them. This isn't a one-time mistake. This is a pattern of behavior that finally resulted in consequences he couldn't buy his way out of. She picked up a document. Miss Whitehorse submitted a victim impact statement. Would you like me to read it? Yes, Your Honor, Kaya said from the gallery, her voice stronger than she felt. Morrison read, I don't hate Marcus Thornton. I pity him. He had everything. Wealth, health, a daughter who loved him, and he threw it away because he couldn't stop drinking, couldn't accept responsibility, couldn't be the father Luna deserved. I nearly died giving Luna what her own father wouldn't, protection. And I'd do it again, but I hope he understands the cost, not just to me, but to her, to every child watching who learns that courage matters less than money, to every person who believes the system protects the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. Morrison sat down the paper. The plea agreement recommends 20 years. I'm accepting it. But Mr. Thornton, understand this. You're not going to prison because you made a mistake. You're going because you spent 42 years making the same mistake over and over. And you finally hurt someone the world couldn't ignore. I hope you use these 20 years to become someone your daughter could be proud of. But I'm not optimistic. The gavel fell. Luna squeezed Ka's hand. Is it over? Yeah, baby, it's over. Does that mean he can't hurt anyone anymore? Ka thought about all the ways Marcus Thornton had already hurt people. All the damage that would ripple forward 4 years. Luna growing up knowing her father chose himself over her. The trauma that no prison sentence could erase. It means he won't hurt anyone for a long time, Kaya said carefully. And that's something. That night, Cole made his offer official. They were in his house, a modest place by most standards, but a palace compared to Kaya's van. Luna was asleep upstairs. The fire was crackling. Everything felt domestic and normal and terrifying. I want to adopt you, Cole said without preamble. Legally, make you my daughter in every way that matters. Ka had known this was coming, but hearing it still hit like a punch. Cole, I know you're 19. Know you're legally an adult. But you said yourself you don't know how to be in a family anymore. So, let me teach you. Let me be the father you should have had. I had a father. He was a monster. Then let me show you what fathers are supposed to be. Present, supportive, someone who doesn't run when things get hard. Ka felt tears burning. What if I can't do this? Can't be the daughter you want? You already are. You saved Luna. Became her hero, her sister, her family. You don't have to be anything else. But what if? Ka's voice broke. What if I mess this up? What if I can't trust you? What if I wake up one day and you've left like everyone else? Cole crossed the room and knelt beside her chair. Then I'll prove you wrong every single day until you believe me. I'll show up. I'll stay. I'll be the steady thing in your life you never had. He touched the ring around her neck. My wife would have loved you. Would have seen the same thing I see. Someone worth fighting for. I don't know how to let people fight for me. Learn. That's all I'm asking. Learn to accept that you're worth it. That you deserve a family. That surviving doesn't have to be something you do alone. Ka looked at this man who'd come into her life because she jumped into freezing water. This stranger who'd refused to let her die. This president of a motorcycle club who'd shown her that family was choice, not blood. Okay, she whispered. Okay, yes, I'll try. Cole pulled her into a hug and Ka let herself be held. Let herself be vulnerable. Let herself, for the first time in years, believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd found something worth staying alive for. 3 weeks later, 1,500 motorcycles escorted Ka to her grandmother's grave. The procession stretched 4 miles, bikes from 47 states, every Hells Angels chapter that could spare members, and dozens of independents who'd come just to honor the girl who didn't let go. They rode through the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, with engines rumbling like thunder, past the tribal council building, where Joseph and the others stood watching with bowed heads, past the house where Ka's grandmother had died, begging for a help that never came. They stopped at the cemetery on a hill overlooking the reservation. Ka climbed off Cole's bike on shaky legs. Luna held her hand. The brotherhood formed a circle around the grave, silent and respectful. Ka knelt in the grass with flowers she'd picked that morning. Hi, Grandma. I'm sorry it took so long to visit. I was angry at you for leaving, at the council for letting you die, at myself for not saving you. The wind carried her words away, but I did something you'd be proud of. I saved a little girl, kept her alive when everyone else gave up, and I survived just like you taught me. Ka touched the medicine pouch at her throat. Fierce heart. You called me that, said I'd need it someday. You were right. She placed the flowers on the grave. I found a family, real family, people who chose me, and I'm going to use everything you taught me to help other kids. Make sure no one else falls through the cracks like I did. Luna stepped forward with her own flowers. Hi, Ka's grandma. I'm Luna. Ka saved me. She's my sister now. Thank you for teaching her to be brave. Ka pulled Luna close and let herself cry. For her grandmother, for the years lost, for the girl she'd been before the fire, before the exile, before Lake Tahoe, and for the woman she was becoming. Someone who understood that family wasn't about blood or obligation. It was about showing up, about refusing to let go. About 1,500 people riding through the desert to tell one girl that she mattered. The engines started again, one by one at first, then together, a symphony of chrome and leather and loyalty that echoed across the reservation. Ka stood and faced them. This army of strangers who'd become family. This brotherhood that had claimed her as their own. Thank you, she said, though they couldn't hear her over the engines. Thank you for not letting go. Cole appeared beside her. Ready? Yeah, I'm ready. They climbed on the bike and joined the procession. 1,500 strong, riding into sunset, carrying with them the story of a girl who'd stood in freezing water and refused to surrender, and the family that refused to forget her. 7 years passed like water flowing over stones, slowly reshaping everything it touched. Ka was 26 now, standing in front of a Senate committee with Cole beside her and Luna in the gallery watching. The hearing room was packed with journalists, advocates, and a dozen senators who'd made the mistake of thinking this would be routine testimony. It wasn't. Miss Whitehorse, Senator Patricia Graham began, reading from notes that made Kaya's life sound like a statistic. You've submitted a proposal for the Whitehorse Child Protection Act. Can you summarize what this legislation would accomplish? Kaya had practiced this speech 100 times, had memorized talking points, statistics, the careful political language Cole's lawyers had helped her craft. But standing there looking at faces that would decide whether homeless kids got help or continued falling through cracks, she abandoned the script. It would save lives. She said simply, the kind of life I had, sleeping in a van, working for cash, invisible to every system designed to protect children, that shouldn't exist in America, not when we have the resources to prevent it. The proposal requires significant federal funding, $3.7 billion over 5 years. I know that sounds like a lot, until you remember we spent twice that on a single military aircraft. And we're not asking you to choose between defense and children. We're asking you to treat homeless youth like they're worth defending. Senator Graham's expression shifted slightly. Go on. The bill has 3 core provisions. First, mandatory response protocols for every report of homeless minors. No more ignoring cases because they're inconvenient. Second, whistleblower protections for anyone reporting child welfare violations on reservations in foster systems anywhere. Third, funding for transitional housing, job training, and mental health services. Kaya leaned forward. Every child who falls through the cracks is a failure of imagination. We pretend we can't solve this because solving it would require admitting we let it happen. You speak from personal experience. I lived in a van for 7 months. I was blacklisted by my own tribal council for reporting corruption. I nearly died in Lake Tahoe because I was the only person who jumped in. Kaya's voice was steady. So yes, Senator, I speak from experience, and I'm asking you, begging you to make sure no other kid has to survive what I survived just to prove they deserve protection. The room was silent. Senator Marcus Webb, no relation to the neurology doctor, spoke next. Miss Whitehorse, I've reviewed your foundation's work. The Whitehorse Foundation has helped over 3,000 youth in 7 years. Impressive, but critics say federal legislation overreaches, that these issues are better handled at state level. Critics are usually people who've never been homeless. Kaya said never spent a winter wondering if they'll freeze to death. Never reported abuse, only to have the system side with abusers. State-level solutions have failed for decades. We need federal standards, because children's safety shouldn't depend on which state they're born in. Cole touched her arm gently. They discussed this. She was pushing too hard to fast, but Cole was done being patient. I stood in water cold enough to kill me for 45 minutes. She continued. I refused to let go of a stranger's child, because that's what you do when someone needs help. All I'm asking is that you do the same. Stand in the discomfort. Refuse to let go. Be the people who look at homeless children and see humans worth saving. Senator Graham was quiet for a long moment. We'll take a 15-minute recess. Miss Whitehorse, that was quite a statement. It was the truth. Yes, it was. During the recess, Luna appeared at Kaya's side. She was 10 now, sharp and fearless, and completely devoted to her sister. You're amazing, Luna said. You made that one senator cry. Which one? The lady in the back. She was wiping her eyes. Kaya looked and saw Senator Webb's aide, a woman about her age, trying to compose herself. Their eyes met. The woman mouthed two words. Thank you. Maybe we got through to them, Cole said. Maybe they'll actually pass this thing. And if they don't, then we keep fighting. That's what we do. The committee voted 3 weeks later, 14-3, in favor of moving the bill to the full Senate. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was progress. Real progress. That night, Kaya called Dr. Simone Park to share the news. They're going to pass it, Simone said with certainty. I testified last week at the House hearing. The momentum is there. How did your testimony go? I told them about a 19-year-old girl I wanted to give up on. How I looked at statistics instead of her humanity. How she survived anyway. And taught me that medicine isn't about probabilities. It's about refusing to quit. Simone's voice was emotional. I told them they have the same choice. Look at numbers and do nothing, or look at children and do everything. You're using your platform. Following your example. I've been doing pro bono work on 3 reservations, setting up mobile clinics, training local providers, trying to make sure no one else dies, because bureaucracy moves slower than crisis. Ka felt something warm bloom in her chest. My grandmother would have loved you. I wish I could have met her. She raised someone extraordinary. After they hung up, Kaya sat with Cole on the porch, watching Luna chase fireflies in the yard. This was family. This was home. And 7 years ago, she'd been convinced she'd die alone. You're thinking too loud, Cole said, just remembering how different everything was. You have regrets about jumping in. Never. About what came after. Cole touched the ring at her throat. Sometimes I wonder who I'd be if none of it happened. If Luna's father hadn't crashed. If I just kept driving to my construction shift. You'd still be you. Still be someone who couldn't ignore a child's screams. Maybe. But I wouldn't have this. She gestured at the yard, the house, the life they'd built. Wouldn't have you or Luna or the foundation. Wouldn't have purpose. Purpose chose you the moment you stepped into that water. No, I chose it. That's the thing everyone gets wrong. They act like I'm special, like I'm different, but I'm not. I just refuse to walk away. Anyone could have done it. Cole smiled. That's what makes you special. You don't realize how rare that is. The call came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday morning 3 months later. Cole's phone buzzing. Dutch's name on the screen. The kind of call that never brought good news. Brother, Dutch said. You need to get to the hospital. Which hospital? Who's hurt? It's not. Dutch's voice broke. It's Marcus. Marcus Webb heart attack. He's asking for you. The senator, the one who'd questioned Core in committee. Cole had stayed in touch with him, built a friendship over shared meals and long conversations about justice reform. Now he was dying. They reached the hospital 20 minutes later. Senator Webb was in ICU. His wife beside him, tubes and wires making him look smaller than the powerful man who'd shaped legislation for 30 years. Cole, Marcus whispered. Thank you for coming. Save your strength. No time for that. Listen. He grabbed Cole's hand with surprising strength. The bill, the White Horse Act, it's going to pass. Full Senate vote next week. I've secured the votes. Marcus, you should rest. I'm dying. Cole, let me finish my work. Marcus' eyes were fierce. That girl, Carr, she shamed me. Not with anger, but with truth. She stood there and said, we pretend we can't solve this because solving it means admitting we let it happen. She was right. And I've spent 40 years letting it happen. You're trying to fix it now. Too late for my legacy. Not too late for the children. Marcus coughed, his wife supporting him. Promise me you'll see it through. Make sure they pass it. Make sure Carr knows. He stopped, gathering breath. Make sure she knows she changed my mind. Changed my heart. Tell her that matters. Marcus Webb died that night. His last vote, cast by proxy from his deathbed, would be for the White Horse Act. The funeral drew thousands. But the thing people remembered was Kaya's eulogy. How she stood at the podium and said that Senator Webb had proven it was never too late to choose courage. The changing your mind when confronted with truth was its own form of heroism. He could have dismissed me, Kaya said. Could have called me too emotional, too young, too damaged to understand policy. Instead, he listened. He believed, and he used his dying breath to secure votes for legislation that will save thousands of children. She looked at his widow. That's legacy. That's what it means to matter. The White Horse Child Protection Act passed the Senate by a vote of 68 to 32. The House followed 3 weeks later, and on a sunny morning in September, Kaya stood in the White House Rose Garden while the president signed it into law. This legislation represents the best of American values, the president said, handing Kaya the signing pen. The belief that every child deserves protection, that where you come from doesn't determine who you become, and that ordinary people doing extraordinary things can change the world. Luna stood beside Carr, barely able to contain her excitement. Cole was crying again, the way he did whenever he was proud, and Kaya felt her grandmother's presence like a hand on her shoulder, steady and sure. But the real test came 2 years later on a summer morning by Lake Tahoe. Carr was teaching wilderness survival to a group of teens from the foundation. Luna was there too, 16 now and planning to study medicine like Dr. Park. They were demonstrating water safety techniques when Kaya heard it screaming. A child's voice, high and terrified, and coming from the lake. Carr didn't think. She ran. The boy was 8 years old, flailing in water over his head. Foster parents on shore too far away to help. Carr dove in, reached him in seconds, got an arm around his chest. I've got you, she said. The same words she'd said to Luna 9 years ago. You're safe now. The boy, his name was Matteo, clung to her with desperate strength. I can't swim. I thought I could, but I can't. That's okay. I can swim for both of us. She brought him to shore where his foster mother waited with tears streaming. Thank you, God, thank you. But Carl was looking at Matteo, at the way he flinched when his foster father approached, at the weariness in his eyes, at all the signs she recognized because she'd carried them herself. You're safe, she told him again, meaning more than the water. And if you're not, you tell me. Okay, you tell me, and I'll help. Matteo nodded slowly. You promise? I promise. Someone came for me when I needed it. Now I come for you. That's how it works. That night, Carr made calls, investigated Matteo's placement, found evidence of neglect that got him moved to a better home. And 3 months later, when his adoption was finalized by a couple who actually wanted him. Mateo asked if Cole would come to the ceremony. Why me? Carr asked. Because you kept your promise. You said you'd come for me, and you did. Mateo touched a small ring he wore on a chain. A gift from Cole, a reminder that family was choice. Now I want you to see that I'm okay. That your promise worked. The circle was closing, completing, proving that rescue wasn't a single moment, but a legacy that rippled forward. 5 years later, Cole died in his sleep at 68. His heart simply stopped. The doctors said, no pain, no warning, just there one moment and gone the next. The funeral drew over 2,000 Hells Angels from every chapter in North America. They came to honor a man who'd built a family from strangers, who'd refused to let a homeless girl die alone, who'd shown them that brotherhood meant showing up. Cole delivered the eulogy with Luna beside her, both wearing their rings, both carrying pieces of the man who'd chosen them. Cole Ramirez taught me that family isn't blood, Kaya said, voice steady despite tears. It's the choice to refuse to let go. 7 years ago, he stood in a hospital and told doctors they couldn't give up on me. Said I'd survived impossible odds and deserved someone to fight for me. He was right. And everything good in my life since then. Luna, the foundation, the legislation, every child we've helped. It exists because one man refused to accept that some battles can't be won. She looked at the sea of leather and chrome. He's gone, but his legacy is every person in this room who learned that love is action, that family is presence, that matching means showing up even when, especially when the odds say you should walk away. Luna spoke next, her voice breaking. Cole was my grandfather. Not by blood, but by choice. He chose Carr. Cole chose me. And now we choose each other every day. That's what he taught us. That's what he leaves behind. They buried him beside his wife, reunited after 13 years apart. And on his headstone, at Carr's request, they inscribed, he refused to let go. Luna became a pediatric emergency physician, specializing in hypothermia and water rescue cases. She told every young patient the same story about a sister who'd held her above freezing water and taught her that 45 minutes could change everything. Dr. Simone Park retired at 73, but spent her remaining years volunteering on reservations, training indigenous healthcare workers, telling everyone that a 19-year-old girl had taught her miracles were real. Anna lived a long life, married a teacher named James at 32, had 3 children who called Luna, and grew up hearing stories about the day their mother jumped into freezing water, ran the White Horse Foundation until she was 68, helping over 47,000 youth find stability. She never stopped wearing the ring. On the day Kaya died, 83 years old, surrounded by family at peace, her eldest daughter found a letter in her desk, instructions to donate the ring to the Smithsonian, to create an exhibit about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The exhibit opened 2 years later. The promise, how one girl's refusal to let go changed America. The centerpiece was the ring, Cole's wife's wedding band on a silver chain, worn smooth by decades of touch. Beside it, the medicine pouch from Kaya's grandmother, Luna's crayon letter, photos of 1,500 motorcycles, Senate floor footage of the White Horse Act passing, and a video. Carr at 79 filmed 6 months before she died. Speaking directly to camera. People call me a hero, she said in the video. But I'm not. I'm just someone who refused to walk away when a child needed help. Anyone could have done it. That's what I want people to understand. Courage isn't special. It's a choice, and it's available to everyone. She touched the ring at her throat. This belonged to a woman I never met. She gave it to her husband with a promise. Protect our daughter. He gave it to me because I kept a promise. Don't let go. And now I'm giving it to whoever sees this and needs to hear it. You have the capacity for extraordinary courage. You just have to choose it. You have to be the person who jumps in, who stands in the cold, who refuses to surrender even when every rational voice says you should. Carr smiled. Someone came for me when I had nothing. That's how this works. You come for someone else. You keep the promise. You don't let go and 45 minutes becomes a lifetime, becomes a legacy that outlives you. The video ended. Visitors to the exhibit stood in silence, many crying, all understanding they'd witnessed something fundamental about human nature, about the choice between running and staying, between abandoning and protecting, between saving yourself and saving someone else. The final display was a quote on the wall, 'cause words from her Senate testimony enlarged until they dominated the room. Family is not blood. It is 45 minutes of refusing to let go when the world says you should. It is choosing someone. It is showing up. It is the promise that says, I will not abandon you, not when it's cold, not when it's hard, not when saving you costs me everything. On a Tuesday morning in 2071, a man named Mateo Rodriguez brought his daughter to that exhibit. She was 7, he was 53, and he stood in front of the ring while tears slid down his cheeks. What's wrong, Daddy? His daughter asked. Nothing's wrong, Mika. I'm just remembering someone who saved my life. The lady in the pictures. Yes. Her name was Carl Whitehorse. She pulled me from a lake when I was your age, and then she kept saving me, made sure I was safe, found me a real family, showed me that people who have nothing can still give everything. His daughter studied the ring. Is that hers? Yes, she wore it every day. It meant family. It meant promise. It meant refusing to let go. Did you know her? I did. And she taught me something important. Mateo knelt to his daughter's level. She taught me that someday someone will need help. And when that happens, you have to be the person who jumps in, who stays, who keeps the promise. Can you do that? His daughter thought about it with the seriousness only children possess. Even if it's scary, especially if it's scary, that's when it matters most. Okay, Daddy. I promise. Mateo pulled her close, and in that moment, the circle that had started with a 19-year-old girl in freezing water continued forward. The promise passing from generation to generation, the legacy living in every person who chose courage over comfort, presence over absence, staying over running. Outside the museum, the world continued turning. Children played, cars passed, life unfolded in all its messy complexity. But inside that exhibit, in front of a simple ring on a silver chain, people stood and understood something essential. That family isn't given, it's chosen. That heroism isn't special, it's available to everyone. And that 45 minutes of refusing to let go can echo through decades, saving thousands of lives you'll never meet. Because Kaya White had jumped into freezing water when she could have walked away. Because Cole Ramirez had refused to let a stranger die. Because Luna had believed in promises. Because 1,500 bikers had gathered to say one life mattered. Because Dr. Park had learned miracles were fought for. Because Senator Webb had changed his mind. Because ordinary people had chosen to be extraordinary. The world was different, not perfect, not healed, but different. And that was everything. The inscription on the exhibit's final wall said it all. She didn't let go. Neither should you. Someone is waiting for you to jump in. Someone needs you to stand in the cold. Someone's life depends on your refusal to walk away. Be the one who keeps the promise. Be the one who stays. Be the family they deserve. That was Kaya Whitehorse's legacy. Not the medals, or the legislation, or the millions raised, but the simple truth that choosing courage changes everything. That family is built not from blood, but from showing up. And that the promise to never let go is the most powerful force in human history. She kept her promise in 45 minutes of ice. The world kept hers for a lifetime. And the promise continues. In every person who refuses to walk away. In every life touched by the Whitehorse Foundation. In every child who learns that being saved means eventually saving someone else. That's not just legacy. That's immortality. That's how ordinary people become eternal. That's how one girl's refusal to let go becomes 1,500 angels, making medical history, becomes a nation protecting its most vulnerable children, becomes a truth that outlives everyone who witnessed it. Courage is a choice, family is a promise, and love is refusing to let go even when the ice closes in, and the world says you should run. Kaya Whitehorse didn't run. She stood, she sank, she survived. And in doing so, she showed the rest of us how to.